So I'm Jordan Hodgson. I'm on Wallamadigal country or Wili country in Sydney's northern suburbs. I volunteer with Citizens Climate Lobby because I believe that local and grassroots action is a critical part in solving the climate crisis. I was attracted to CCL because of their approach towards civic engagement and focusing on building positive relationships. So this is really what we're going to talk about today in terms of how CCL goes about lobbying and engaging our elected officials. So first of all, it probably helps to have a common understanding of what lobbying is. So lobbying is a form of advocacy with the intention of influencing the decision makers of a government or the opposition representatives. So all attempts to influence legislators and officials, whether they are other legislators, constituents, so the people who vote within the electorates, or other organized groups, all do lobbying activities. And so how does lobbying fit within the CCL context? Aside from it being in our name, it forms a very key part of what we do. So our core values and proven system is what sets us apart from many other climate action organizations. So CCL forms and organizes around 5 levers of building political will. So at a group level, we engage in the grassroots, which are people in our local community, and grass tops being the business and community leaders and industry leaders, as well as keeping a steady drumbeat of media going, both traditional and social media. So all these different levers are aimed at strengthening our liaison connection with our Member of Parliament and demonstrating to them that there's growing political will within the electorate to which they need to respond. And I think the key thing there is, lobbying is part of what we do, but it's very much central to the whole process of generating that political will. Now, a critical distinction to make is the difference between professional lobbyists and citizen lobbyists. Marshall Saunders, who's the founder of CCL, he made a really great case for what it means to be an engaged and active citizen. This certainly applies to us here in Australia, as it does in the US and in other democracies around the world. So we live in a democratic country where citizen engagement is valued and encouraged. The word lobbying may carry some negative connotations stemming from the practice of paid professional lobbying, like the coal lobby and developers and that kind of stuff. However, for us as citizens, it's not only our right, but it's our duty to be engaged and express our voice. If you remember, I guess the key point is that politicians don't create political will, they respond to it. And that's fundamental to what we do in CCL, is generate that. So Marshall had a sort of an epiphany or an aha moment when he realized that ordinary people like you and me have to organize, educate ourselves, give up our hopelessness and our powerlessness to gain the skills to be an effective member of our community and to effectively persuade our government. So our advantage as citizens is that we're not paid or professional lobbyists. We don't have vested interests, but we're people who vote. And I think that's really important. And politicians and MPs give us the time, hopefully give us the time and listen to our concerns, because in the end, we vote them into office. So CCL's lobbying strategy is a little different to what other organizations do, like Get Up and the Australian Conservation Foundation. We're very much focused on establishing long-term relationships with particular politicians. And what we try to do is encourage them to support our goals. It's quite straightforward, but it is a little different, whereas other groups may come in with a clear angle and try to connect and persuade towards adopting certain change or criticizing a particular policy. So our goal, as Rod mentioned in his opening statement, is a key legislative proposal called the Australian Carbon Fee and Dividend. It's a policy that can accelerate climate solutions while being fair and equitable to all Australians and households. It's something that CCL sees as being the most effective foundational climate solution. And there's been actually a lot of talk recently in the news off the back of the government's recent technology roadmap that all of these policies are great, but without a carbon price to underpin the whole policy and direction of government attitude or policies, it kind of means nothing. So this graph here on the right-hand side illustrates quite effectively what the carbon price did when we had a form of it back in the around the 2012 to 2014 period. So that blue line is our emissions, and it came into effect in that little yellow bar. So you can see that the emissions started trending downwards. And then when it was taken away from us, the emissions shot back up and have been at their highest point than they've ever been. So while we acknowledge that it is a little tricky at the moment in Australia to talk about a price on carbon, it's not the most popular policy ask compared to a lot of other things out there at the moment. We have supporting asks. And so we look at other various things. So it might be supporting Zali Steggall's bill, the Climate Change Act. It might be other ways to, say, in a rural electorate, how the MP can engage with farmers and the government can help farmers to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. It might be joining the Parliamentary Friends of Climate Action. So there are a number of different things that we look at and have up our sleeves to support and help us get closer to the point where we can have a carbon fee and dividend in place. So our methodology, again, is very much focused on relationships. So we want to develop relationships with the MP and their office because we want to be a trusted advisor or policy expert. So part of the reason why professional lobbyists are so successful at their job is because they know the issues. They understand the issues and are often seen as the experts. So we can do that as well. CCL has specific information regarding how our policies and solutions will impact our electorate and state and the nation. And so we very much leverage that going into a lobby meeting. The CCL way is always to operate with respect, appreciation, and gratitude. It's not just our slogan, it's the cornerstone of who we are and how we go about building relationships. So we always appeal to the best in other people, even if we don't agree with the policy or the position of that particular MP. We avoid being confrontational, and we frame our position by being for solutions as opposed to being against decisions or policies or attitudes. So very much a positive approach. So our one main rule with respect to relationships is that we want to treat everyone, even those we don't agree with, we want to treat them with respect, attitude, and respect, appreciation, and gratitude. Okay, I think I skipped one. So how we build relationships. In order to build a positive working relationship, the best way to start doing that is by establishing common ground. So as an advocate, you'll be much more powerful in starting a conversation with the MP in a way that relates to something meaningful to them. If you, with a little bit of research, you can find something in the recent news that you can show appreciation for. So it might be that you saw them in the newspaper at say, a recent ribbon cutting ceremony, and you can congratulate them on that. It could be something else that's happened in the local community that they've been outspoken about. It could even be their position on climate change, and hopefully it's something positive. So this often takes a little bit of research, but going into the meeting, it's a very important aspect of what we do in terms of preparing our team and making sure that all the volunteers and the members of that lobby team understand their role and are comfortable going into that meeting. So 3 things that you could look at: shared values, such as a concern for our children's future or grandchildren's future, social connection. So MPs in our typically live within the electorates that they represent. So it's likely that you have some association, could be a club that you're involved with, or school that they have attended, or a university, or it could be a place that that you care for, and there could be some affiliation there. So when it comes to the lobby meeting itself, the aims of a lobby meeting are to create a relationship, to state our position, and so what our goals are and what our asks are, and to hear their views. And so the key thing is that we want to listen more than we talk ourselves. It's about that long-term approach to building a relationship. Now, the lobby team is very important. So we tend not to go into lobby meetings alone. We often pick someone who is a little more experienced and understands the CCL methodology and approach, and they tend to be the leader of that meeting. They could also be the liaison. So the liaison is the person, the CCL volunteer, that cultivates a relationship with the MP's office and acts as the face of CCL with that MP. The leader coordinates with the team and assigns the role beforehand. They also help to facilitate the meeting. Typically, we have half an hour booked in, so it's not a lot of time to go through everything that we want to cover. So having someone to help facilitate and keep the meeting on track is very helpful. We also have a scribe or someone to take notes and capture things that are said, both verbally and non-verbal cues by the MP or staffer, and include any key quotes. They also type up the meeting minutes and the notes, and we record that on file, so we have a record of that for follow-up and the next time that we hopefully have a meeting and we get the call back to do that. There's also the timekeeper, so they help to monitor the time. They record the approximate percentage that the MP spoke versus the CCL volunteers. We target about 50-50. So hopefully, we're not dominating the conversation, and the MP has the opportunity to talk. And then they also note the number of open-ended questions that the CCL team ask. So that's an important part of the planning the meeting, understanding which questions or what questions we're going to ask. There's also an appreciator. So they show appreciation for something that the MP has done recently, some sort of accomplishment, and this is something that all the lobby team members should try to do anyway. So as part of their introduction, their 20-second introduction, thinking of something that you can be appreciative for really goes a long way to help establish that relationship. We then have the askers, so the primary asker and the secondary asker. So they're the team members that present CCL's purpose and primary ask, and then often the secondary asks after assessing the MP's response to our proposal of carbon fee and dividend. So all of these roles are clearly defined and organized before going into the meeting. Sometimes they're shared by multiple people. So it could be a small, it could be a large lobby group, or it could be a small group. So someone will have to take on multiple roles, but this is all arranged before going in to the meeting. So then the outline of the meeting typically goes like this. So we open the meeting with a thank you. It's very important to open with an appreciation. We then take the time to briefly introduce ourselves. So that's a 20-second introduction, where it's a real opportunity to make that personal connection and throw in another point of appreciation. The timekeeper then checks to see how much time is available. Again, typically it's 30 minutes, but if the meeting goes well, often it will continue beyond that. I was involved in a meeting in February with my MP, and I think we were still going an hour into it, and we had to almost call time. Then it's the appreciations, so that's often done during the introductions. And then we state very briefly what the carbon fee and dividend is. And quite often the MP, if they've met with us previously, will recall what the carbon fee and dividend is, may have some questions, and it's an opportunity to talk about it in a little more detail. And that's what the request is. So our request might be to support a carbon fee and dividend, or to find out more. It really depends on the individual MP. And then the meeting will continue and progress from there. And the leader will facilitate accordingly to try and keep it on track. And then if needed, we'll raise any supporting asks. So coming up to the end of the allotted 30 minutes, the timekeeper will sort of raise their hand and say there's 5 minutes remaining. And then it's a chance to follow up on any questions that the MP has, provide any answers, or say, we'll get back to you on that. And then we often have a one-page ask or handout that we'll leave the MP or with their staffer. And then we talk about other opportunities. So it might be to support the climate action bill, might be that we want them to join the Parliamentary Friends of Climate Action. And then we thank them for meeting with us, which is really important to show that appreciation at the start and also at the finish. Ideally, if there's a chance to take a photo, we'll ask if that's appropriate. And we'll put that up on our social media and share the fact that we've had a meeting with the MP. And also, there's been a number of instances where MPs have put it through their official channels, if we're lucky. So it's always something that we like to do. But the key thing is that we want the MP to be talking more than we do. So aiming for that 50-50. And then after the meeting, the lobby team will either stay on the call if it's a Zoom meeting, or go around the corner to a cafe to debrief, talk about things that they noticed or observed, and compare notes. And then the note taker or scribe or the leader of the lobby team will file the report, and then we'll arrange to do a thank you card or email and follow up with any other information that we committed to during the meeting. So that's pretty much it. It's fairly straightforward. I know the first time that I went into a lobby meeting, it was a little nerve-wracking, but with an experienced team, you're not alone and you have the support. And I've done maybe 3 or 4 since, and it gets a lot easier and more comfortable the more times you do it. So hopefully you get the chance during our lobby week next week. If not, hopefully very soon with your Member of Parliament and your local CCL chapter. But that's more or less it.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to our CCL channel by hitting the button in the top left-hand corner of this screen. Spread the word of CCL by using the share icon to as many of your contacts as possible. Thank you. See you next video.